Tom and Zeus with another episode of Shout It Out Loudcast. Episode 18. Aptly titled Backstage Pass. What could this one be about, huh? Tom, how you doing over there?
What's up, Zeus? How is everything? What's up, Kiss Army? Welcome to another fun-filled evening with us, or day, or morning, or whatever you choose to listen to this.
You opened yourself up when you said that. I know. Not much here. We have continuous playoffs. The Bruins won their series, so they're going on to round 3. So I got to get ready. I'm doing more stretching. I got to get ready for my third round. My knee's kind of hurting, and I took that shot off the back the other day, but I think I'll be all set for the game.
This would be a good
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this would be a good episode for us to show the video so everybody can see that you look like a terrorist right now with your hockey beard.
So first time ever, I decided to be one of those guys. Hey, I'm going to grow a playoff beard. This is the longest I've ever grown a beard, and it fucking sucks. It's annoying.
Yeah, it's itchy.
But I can't shave it now. My mom literally says to me, you look like a terrorist. So my Greek mom tells me I look like a terrorist. It's itchy as hell, but
that shit makes you itch.
Yeah, I love it. Put mustard on it. But doing it for the team. Got to win for the team. What was that? Yeah. You're a beard grower. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and what's a team?
And once again, we're recording on a Wednesday because we have to shuffle our recording schedule around the Bruins, which is fine because we love the Bruins.
Because I will be there, and if you want to look for me, I'm there right at the door, third row from the bench, right next to the Bruins entrance. It'll be the gruffly guy that wears his Kiss Army shirt underneath. Yes. That lucky shirt has been helping us through these playoffs. I always say if one of the days that they do lose, and I do wear it, it's because something else is wrong. It's not the Kiss shirt.
Yeah, like me coming to the game.
Yeah, like you coming. That was the bad luck. Yeah.
Yep.
Other than that, we had my daughter. She fun fact. So my daughter, we had the national chair. Remember I was telling you about? It's in glorious Providence, Rhode Island, down 45 minutes from me in Boston.
Yep.
And they won. They won the national championship there for her age group.
I saw that.
Was super excited, and I was like Johnny Cheer mom jumping up, yeah, and super pumped for her. I'm happy, I never get to hear the end of it.
No, that's great. And then all the other cheer parents were like, Natalia, who's the terrorist cheering for you with that beard over there?
Who's that loser that while he was sitting there waiting was reading a Paul Stanley Kiss book? Taking notes. That's the worst part. So I'm at the cheer thing. You know, my daughter's doing her thing with her friends. Her mom is there. She's doing her thing. I'm in the back while after they perform, you have to wait hours until everybody performs in that age group, and then they give out the awards. I'm in the back with my Kiss book, taking down notes and reading. The person next to me is like, it's probably bad enough that you're reading a Paul Stanley Kiss book, but this jackass is taking notes down as though his life depends on it.
Notes on this book. We'll get into that.
Guess what, folks? I've got 8 pages of notes on this. So
yeah, that sound you heard is everybody being like, click.
Yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah.
So that's what was going on with me. How about you? Everything good over there? Family life in New Hampshire?
Well, just actually at the time of this recording, just came back from a glorious track meet up in southern New Hampshire.
How was that?
Good. Well, weather was perfect. It was finally nice to be outside for a while.
Yeah.
And now I'm just drinking some of my Woodstock Inn Brewery beer.
What is that shit? Just drink a Bud Light, would you?
I do have some. I do have some. I do have that. I like
you used to like get Nat Light and shit like that. Now you're like, I'll have a Harper's Ferry Summer Moon Ale.
Well, because
Make sure it's a little pale and please with a slice of avocado on the side.
hey, I'm drinking my Woodstockian Brewery Pig's Ear Brown Ale.
Oh, God.
Dude,
where do I go? Where have I ordered any other beer other than I'll have a Bud Light, Coors Light, or a Miller Lite?
You know why
Thanks.
I'm drinking this? I need alcohol to get through this
You're in
episode.
New Hampshire.
I need alcohol to get through this episode.
So now if people didn't fucking delete this podcast, they're gonna do it now.
No, this
Wonderful.
is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So what's going on in Kiss World?
The only quote unquote, well, it's not major, but so Kiss is obviously on their break before their European tour starts at the end of this month, May. So they were at they were at the Domination Festival in Mexico on May 3rd, and the part of the show where Paul gets on his little apparatus to fly out onto the platform, there was apparently a little malfunction. But it's weird because it shows he climbs onto the apparatus, okay? But then he turns around and talks to the roadie or the technician or something, and then he gets off of it.
Yeah, and he's like, "Fuck that!"
Right, but the weird thing is that
Good for Paul.
But the weird thing is that the contraption ends up still flying out to the platform.
Yeah, and as soon as you went on it, he would fall and land on 50 people and break his back.
So I don't
probably
know,
wasn't strong enough.
See, that's the thing. I'm a huge conspiracy theory guy. So I'm like, did Paul get like a little stage fright or something happen?
No. Why would he get stage fright of that? I think what he thought was like, this fucking looks shady. I am not going over this and falling down and breaking my head in front of everybody.
But how could it look shady? He does it for every show. I mean, it's the same setup.
Yeah, but maybe it was like, you know what? It wasn't really steady before, and, the other bands or somebody else was performing, and now I'm not going on this. I've got a weird premonition. I don't want to get injured. I'm not going on it. Who cares?
Yeah, I got to do my book tour. I can't get hurt.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm not dealing with this shit.
That's all I got on my end. No big news. You got something on your end, don't you?
Yeah, I saw something that Ace had put on Facebook about some guy that's selling merchandise, autographed supposed merchandise, and Ace is like, don't listen to him. It's not authorized from my official Ace place or whatever. And then the guy's like going back and forth with other people on Facebook saying, I am authorized. This is real. This is stuff. I've been doing this for a year. And then you have other people writing back. This guy's a con artist. He's been, doing this for years and ripping off. And then other people are like, no, I've been buying it from years. It's authentic. I don't know. I don't get involved in that stuff. I just saw it. I found it interesting. I don't know if the guy's legit or not. There were some people questioning it. And it just seemed strange that Ace's crew was the one that kind of pointed out, don't buy from him.
Yeah, but what did fake Peter Criss think of this, though?
Peter Criss is trying to track down the guy from the Donahue show.
Yeah, poor Ace.
Yeah. I don't know. The guy said I signed this. I know. So the other thing was shitbag Stewart again stirring shit up.
Yeah. So me and you we actually saw this about a month ago, but it never really it never really hit the quote unquote mainstream on social media or the internet. So we never really made a big deal out of it. But not last night, I think it was Monday maybe. So Loudwire.com, which if you're a hard rock, heavy metal fan, Loudwire is a good go-to site for news and information about hard rock, heavy metal, new, classic, whatever. So it started making the rounds on social media, Twitter, Facebook. So we retweeted it and we commented it on Twitter very pointedly about our opinions. So the short part of the story is that apparently a guy bought tickets to see Kiss. And prior to the show, he claims that he saw videos on YouTube of Kiss performing and saw that they were lip syncing and he asked for a refund and claims that Ticketmaster gave him a refund because he claims that it was lip syncing. Now,
yeah, that it wasn't a live performance and that's fraud, and he wants his money back.
Right. So, of course, he calls in to Stewart's show. And actually, you know what? I take that back. I don't even know if this guy called in. I think Eddie. Eddie. We all know who Stewart is. So this was his statement. Quote, I know
Stewart from Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Quote, I know a guy who spent $1,000 on 4 Kiss tickets in Boston, the show we were at, ironically, had never seen the band before, saw this stuff on YouTube that he wasn't going to get a full live performance. Went to Ticketmaster and said, I paid for live. This isn't fully live. I want a refund. 24 hours later, Ticketmaster issued the refund. Now, let me tell you right now, I can speak from experience. I have bought tickets from Ticketmaster, and I have requested a refund. You don't talk to anybody. You can do it electronically online. If you do talk to a customer service person, they don't ask why. They don't care. All they do is look at your purchase and check to see if it's refund eligible. Some shows and the time frame between the date of purchase, they'll issue you a refund. There is absolutely no fucking way that this guy called Ticketmaster and said, I paid for live. This isn't live. And Ticketmaster was like, we agree. Here's your refund.
Let's do an investigation. And we found out through our sources that that's not live. And therefore, your money's – shut the fuck up.
Exactly. And I'll tell you right now, this pissed me off so bad because this is blatant – this is bullshit news coming from one of the biggest voices in rock.
You know what it is? It's like someone's going up, all the shit going on about political, and this guy needs to be arrested, and this guy does this. And it's like, you know, of all the accusations against President Trump, there's an accusation that he was driving 70 in a 65-mile-an-hour. Well, he's a lawbreaker. He broke the law. No one gives a fuck, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, this is not anything of importance. So of all the things going on in music, you mean to tell me he needs to bring up that perhaps Kiss, has backing tracks? So are they going to go and talk about every fucking major artist that performs live today has this? But no, it's only an issue because it's Kiss. No, it's only an issue because Stewart makes an issue because he brings it up to Kiss and it gets put on these websites for clickbait.
But you're right. But the dangerous thing here, and it's to me, I know I'm being a little hyperbolic using the term dangerous, but when you're talking about a respected voice in rock that is perpetrating,
speak for yourself.
Well, you know what I mean. But is perpetrating a story.
He's purposely trying to hurt them.
That the largest ticket agency in the country is issuing refunds because of Kiss's lip syncing. Somebody's got to call him out. That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
So it's like buying a shirt at Target. You can bring it back for no cause. You can bring it back saying, yeah, the color is not the same color I really want. You can bring it back and says someone put a booger on it. It doesn't fucking matter. They're going to take your money and go, here you go.
Exactly.
Take the product back, go, here you go.
Exactly.
So the fact that he's bringing this up, that's my point. So he's making the refund, which could have been for anything, into like, oh, they're refunding it because they're not performing live. Like I said, you're taking something and you're calling somebody a lawbreaker because they did something that everybody fucking does in this world. And it's not a fucking issue. No one deals it. No one makes it a fucking thing. But no, because it's Kiss and it's that fucking baby ass fucking crybaby sack of shit with this fucking Stuart Winger shirt on. Thinks that he's like, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. Yeah, I talked to so-and-so. Yeah, I ate his ass last week. Who gives a fuck what you did? And it's him, and it gets put out there. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Literally, and fuck him.
Now, I don't doubt that the guy watched something on YouTube and was like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't feel like seeing them live. I'm going to get a refund. And he got a refund. Like I said,
he's a fucking dickhead. And then he has to call and tell people, yeah, I got a refund. I bought this, and it's not live. Oh, okay then. Whoa.
That's why it set me off, because I'm like,
McDonald's is supposed to put 4 pieces of napkin in my fucking to-go bag. They only put 3. I went in and filed a consumer complaint. Like, shut the fuck up.
It would be better if he just stuck to bitching about friggin' airfare and airline delays, because he does a better job with that on his fucking Twitter page. All right.
Go fucking eat ass. I just hung out with the fucking fourth fucking bassist from the defunct Warrant band, and I had an interview with him, and he's in a new band created with fucking Crocus's fucking 15th keyboard player, and I know these guys. Oh, yeah. Can I be you? I'm gonna drop something because you fucking told me that. Oh,
yeah, and you know what? They're all live. They perform live.
Oh my God, Crocus performs live. Yeah, in fucking Brother Mike's basement at Stonehill College, they do.
Yeah, great. You get the original drummer from Lizzie Borden performing in studio. Good for you.
Oh, we're gonna piss off some people. Fuck, we don't know these fucking bands. We're just tooling on the fact that this asshole loves to stir shit up.
Yep.
And then the other part was, you know what they do? They take some of the parts out of Paul's new book. And they put in the media, and then he added, oh, do you believe this guy? Oh, the most sensitive man. Oh, dude, talk about sensitive. Talk about fucking, you can't let shit go that your idols think you're a loser.
Yeah.
Your idols. The ones that, if you look back at all those fucking YouTube clips of your show where you used to friggin' get on your knees and want to lick their ball sweat.
Yep.
They think you're a tool, and they don't like you. So you look like the ass, not them.
Yeah.
All you talk about is them. Oh, what they do to Ace? You know, oh, they doing it for the money. Oh, it's a fake cover band. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself, Stewart. Fucking before I send Beavis and Butter there to kick your ass again, fucking bozo.
And that wraps up Stewart's segment.
Next week on our show, Stewart is coming on to talk to us, right?
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
Fuck him.
I would love that.
Fucking.
All right. So.
Eat a dick.
So, where are we?
All right. Enough about that fucking tool. Anyways, this week's episode, we are going to talk about Paul's new book, Backstage Pass. So we both got it last Tuesday when it came out.
Yep.
Right? Gave ourselves a week to finish reading it. First things first, Tom, I'd like to say it was a pretty easy read.
Well, before we get into it, let's do like a spoiler alert. I know people are going to see the episode title when they download this and listen to it, but if you have not read this book yet, wait until you have before you listen to us, because we are going to pick this apart. We're going to talk about all of it. So just a little bit of a spoiler warning here. So
yeah, absolutely. We're going to go through this in minutia.
Yeah.
So, you know, what we don't want you to do is to kind of be like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, now I'm not going to read the book. Do it on your own. Listen to us. Come back and pick up the points, and then maybe have a discussion with us about something that you thought was interesting, something you found that you wanted to get into more detail about. We'd love to discuss it with you. Overall, what I was saying, Tom, is I think the book was an easy read.
Extremely easy read.
It's very short, not long. Everything is like pretty big writing, and every page is always like a blank page before that, then a title page, and then that. So you're like reading, it's like 5-6 pages a chapter.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at 17 chapters, I believe, into 3 different sections. You know, and it totals out to 227. Of the 227, I would probably guess not even 200 pages.
Oh, at least. Yeah, at least.
Right?
Yep.
So what I'd like to do is, because I took a lot more probably notes than Tom, I'm going to go through this.
Yeah, what I did was like Zeus and I, whenever we pick a topic and prepare for the episode, we do things differently, but it helps when we record. So what I did, as I was coming across, points of interest for me, I would kind of dog ear the pages of my book, it just to kind of highlight, some things that I wanted to talk about per section, because we are going to kind of go through the book.
Yeah, I was like shepherdizing for those legal scholars this fucking book, like going through this, like using like I am back in law school, going through this and writing down stuff, and that's how I used to get by and reading briefs and reading stuff like that. I use that method on a Paul Stanley Kiss book.
Yeah. Now, before we break down the book, what do you think of the front and back cover?
Yeah, we'll get through that.
Okay.
So on the front is Paul, obviously it looks like honestly backstage, him getting ready. He's not in makeup, and he's got his Paul Stanley Puma kickers on that he designed, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big Puma guy, so. No. Some people like those. There were hot sellers, I can tell you that. So good for him. He's got his boots next to him from his stage. He's got that Paul Stanley. Although I've never seen the color gold.
Me neither.
Guitar.
I noticed that as well.
Right?
Yep.
He's got, a closet there. Looks like a mirror there, actor's mirror, whatever. Probably the mirror he uses to get, his makeup on and stuff. The back cover is him in all glory on stage wearing his Kiss uniform. That's the guitar I know.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, like the broken glass one.
Yeah. So the book is written by Paul Stanley, and he actually has some assistance, and that is with Tim Moore. That's the guy that helped him on his not Backstage Pass, excuse me.
Face the Music.
Face the Music, right?
Yep, Face the Music.
Yeah, Face the Music.
Yep.
And I think they did a pretty good job. Like I said, the book is broken up into 3 parts. Very quick read.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. This is not the Paul Stanley book if you're looking for a book talking about details of the band Kiss. This is Paul Stanley, the man, talking about his stuff. It's not a Kiss book. I would get very excited when I see him talking about Kiss, but there's probably a paragraph about Kiss stuff in each one of these chapters. Not much.
Yeah, this would be categorized as like a self-help philosophy, life affirming type of, one of those kind of books, like a Tony Robbins, you can do it type. You
can do it, what a boy.
Yeah, I mean it's not a Kiss book. It is. It's not a Kiss book.
Johnny Cash autobiographies. I've read Willie Nelson ones. They'll do ones after they've done their biography. Mm-hmm. It'll be like the wisdom of them, stuff that they didn't miss, or funny quips and stories and things they want to talk about. So it's not really an autobiography, but they might throw some new facts or details of something else and elaborate more. Yeah. So this is what Paul is basically doing on this. Yeah, it is a book about, like he says, it's you to change, not for him to change you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this book is written by somebody who has spent the last few years in therapy, and I don't mean that, in a derogatory sense. I want to be clear. I do not. He has really come to terms with a lot of things. It's almost like his therapist told him to write this book, to get these thoughts and emotions and feelings out on paper.
See, I take it the opposite.
Okay.
I don't think his therapy's telling him. I think he feels like he's been doing therapy, as he says in this book, for 40 years, guys.
Yeah.
40 years. That's before he formed Kiss. He's been going to this. So, no, it's not before formed Kiss. What am I saying? But regardless, I think he's found success with therapy.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and I feel like he thinks like this has worked for me. I feel like people look up to me. I want to be able to share that this is something that they can do. I don't think it comes across as too preachy. Several times in the books, I have several years experience. Several times in the book, he talks about, do it for you, not for me. But, I think this is something that he says works for him, and that people ask him sometimes. And so he's telling you what works for him, and that maybe this might work for you as a solution. So anyways, let's get started on the book. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So chapter 1. Okay. I'm not going to read this. This isn't an audible book, but chapter 1 is part 1. He calls Business and Success. That's the segment There's 6 chapters in this segment. Part 1, Business and Success. The first one is called Let the Past Be the Past.
Now, hold on. Let me cut you off. Before we get into that, let's talk about the introduction.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay.
I have it. I'll get to that.
Okay.
So before, the first actual chapter, introduction says, and I wrote down here, Tom, what an opening.
It is.
It grabs you and it's like, what the fuck?
The first sentence.
I'm going to read it to you guys. His book, the introduction section, I put, what an opening. It starts off like this. There was a time when I wish my father would die. Whoa.
Now, this book, like we said, this is not a Kiss book per se. There's a lot of emotion into this book. So a lot of the analysis that we're doing, or at least from my angle, is from a Kiss fan, but also from a personal perspective. That was like a punch in the face.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Okay, especially because my dad is no longer around. Okay.
Awesome guy, and I remember him well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Truly, I do. But to read a book open with that, I was like, God damn, where are we going here? But I think it was an effective way to pull you in.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this is, and he goes on to talk about it in the introduction. After reading his first book a couple years back, lately, if you've been following Paul, because obviously all you guys are, because you wouldn't be listening to us if you weren't big Kiss fans.
Yep.
He's been putting pictures of him and his dad.
Yeah.
And the other, not too long, a couple months back, he had put look at my dad, 99 years old. Great. And all this stuff. And me and you were talking about, I'm like, dude, Paul's like buddy with his dad. He was shitting on him pretty bad in Face the Music.
Face the Music, he was bad. Yeah.
And in talking about how unloving his parents were and what a difficult childhood. Just not an episode ago, we were talking about the difference between Gene and him.
Yep.
And how Gene grew up in a loving family and Paul did not.
Yeah.
And that's why Paul seems very standoffish and not overly affectionate. And here we go. He explains it in the introduction right off the bat, which made a lot of sense.
It did.
So that first line where he says, there was a time I wish my father would die is, it gives you right to that part that me and you were talking about, like, what's up with him and his dad? Yeah. Well, he basically goes and talks about how happy he is that he got to know his dad since he wrote the book. And that he's had these discussions with his dad after he wrote the book. And that all of a sudden, years of not sharing information or not opening up, that has changed. And he's got this wonderful relationship with his father now. And I can only say personally, I feel that is so, I'm happy for the man more than I can, that he got to fix that relationship before he lost his father. Yeah. And explain to him, where he was before. He doesn't sit back and say, oh, yeah, I understand. They were right for being that way. No. But he kind of opened up and they wanted to form their relationship from this point forward. And they have a wonderful relationship now. And that's awesome. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I think he came to terms with why his parents were the way they were throughout his childhood. And as Paul has grown and, his life experiences, his mom is not around anymore. Yeah. He kind of, and there's a paragraph a little bit later on where he says, I don't want my dad to die. I'm lucky enough to be able to tell him that I wish he wouldn't die.
Yeah.
So, that right there, that's amazing to put that into writing and you can tell that, you're 5 pages into the book and Paul is already ripping his heart out and slamming it on the table for everybody to see.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I'm like, I found that fascinating. Yes. It's almost like at that point, I felt like what I was getting into in this book was going to be something like that, like Face the Music from here, the part going forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't end up being like that. But this was a pretty, inside look into his family life. And, I found it interesting.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Let's go into part 1, chapter 1. Let the past be the past.
Yep.
Couple of the things I point out. So he goes back to his old apartment where he was raised, and he had that difficult childhood. He said he used to go back there all the time, and he'd be depressed. And he would reminisce about, the teasing that he got because he had the issue with the ear, and his ear was, it was deformed. And, being teased, and Stanley, the one-eared monster. And he's like, every time he'd go back, that's all his feelings. He didn't want to go back there because he remembered getting a difficult life and, a difficult childhood. But he said now, probably due to therapy, instead of like in the past where he'd go back and be depressed going back there to see that place, he felt different going back. And he brought his kids there and his family there so they would understand, and talked about, how everybody sees their first home is a lot smaller than they imagined it was back then. And I thought it was, a nice little story that he got to go back now when he sees his childhood home. He doesn't have those, like, I'm going to be depressed for a couple of days now after seeing it because all those awful memories come back.
Yeah. And this is where I thought he was continuing with some really powerful and emotive experience. I think going back to your childhood home where you had such bad memories, not just going back, but bringing your family with you. Mm-hmm. That's an exercise that a lot of people would not be able to do. And again, we're only 15, 20 pages into the book and I'm like, okay, this is powerful stuff. Like you said, unfortunately it kind of detoured, but I thought that was an interesting exercise for him to go back and kind of exercise those demons, not just personally, but have his kids come, so that he can kind of purge those feelings with the help of his family next to him.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said this many times before. We said it when we were talking about the Dan Rather interview. Paul is an extremely emotional and passionate, feeling type of individual. I think anybody that follows
very articulate.
Yeah, very articulate with his feelings and where he stands emotionally. And early on in this book, he makes that clear. I thought, again, a good way to start it going.
Yeah, and I'll have these Paul Stanley sayings throughout this episode. So one of his sayings I read was, living well, people say, is the best revenge. But he writes, but it's better not needing revenge. But, not needing revenge, but it's even better to not want revenge.
Yeah.
So not to go back and feel like, oh, now I'm going to get back on all my old classmates that made fun of me. It's like, it's better not needing to give that revenge on them. It's better not even wanting it. I don't care.
Yeah, I actually had that highlighted as well because I like that turn of a phrase where, living well, is the best revenge. But he said, not like you said, not only does it means not needing it, it means not even wanting it. Like, yep. I don't even want that. Now, the flip side of that argument could be some people could be thinking, well, okay, you don't want it, you don't need it, but there's still – I'm going to get to this a little bit later on as we keep talking about the book. There's still that human element inside of people that you can't continually push that away. I mean, revenge is an ugly, ugly thing to have. Nobody wants that in their life.
Except the album.
Except the album, of course. But nobody wants to live with that feeling in them, So I can see where he's going with that. He's friggin' Paul Stanley. Fuck those kids that were making fun of him when he was a kid.
The only one who needs it is Inigo Montoya. Yep. Because somebody killed his father and they need to prepare to die.
Yeah, good one.
When I first saw that movie and then he got stabbed, they're like, all that. And he gives that nice, Christopher Guest gives that awesome speech. It's like, you've been chasing me all this time. I was like, this movie has got the dialogue. It's just so awesome. I digress. Second chapter, be tough on yourself, but always be your biggest fan.
Yep.
I wrote here, this is when I started the book. This is what I wrote. oh no, this is therapy. That chapter, that's when you're like, where's this going?
And here we are. Here comes the therapy. Yep, you're right. And it started off kind of slow and subtle, but now we are full bore. Welcome to therapy.
It's like the man with the million quotes listening to Dan Rather throw out all his old country sayings.
Yep.
I wrote, start counting all the wisdom bits he's going to sponge on us.
Yep.
It's just, I wrote down on the corner, be fun to start a drinking game when Paul starts speaking some Miyagi shit.
That's all it is. It's
right?
Like, it's all poetic. Yeah. It's like, this allows me to release the pain. It's not a form of weakness. It doesn't put the person who hurt us in a position of power. What? Like, and again, we're only on page 24.
That's when I was like, oh, where's this going?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I put about that. Do you have anything else on this chapter?
No, it's just I think it's. Look, I feel
this is ridiculous.
Pretty much. Paul is pouring out his soul, and this is how he feels. But we've said this before. He's talking as if the people that are listening have never heard anybody speak before about anything.
Yeah, like, you know what it almost sounds like? I hate to say this. It sounds like, do you remember the Brady Bunch movie?
Yeah, it's Mike Brady. I have that written down.
Where it's like mocking him, but it's just satire that all the
Zeus?
Mike Brady sayings, wherever you go.
Zeus, I am not joking. If I could show you right now on my notes, I have in capital letters, Mike Brady.
Remember the part when the guy comes back, Mister, you've kidnapped my wife, impersonated her ex-husband, did that. And he's giving all these things the guy's done. But when you swear in front of my kids.
Yeah. No, you know what I thought of too. Well, I don't know if I want to start throwing stuff in now or at the end of the book, but
if it's general, hold off if it's on the typical of the book. But if it's specific to the chapter, go on.
No. Go ahead. No, it's not that specific, but yeah. So go ahead.
All right. So that was chapter 2. I was just like, oh.
We'll move along, or we'll kind of just be we'll be here. We'll be here until friggin' midnight. So.
Yeah. Number 3, every success starts with knowing the difference between a dream and a fantasy. So he talks about dream versus fantasy. And I like this part. Talks about The Voice in American Idol.
Yep.
The internet. He's like, when we were trying to come out, we wanted to be like, Zeppelin. We wanted to go against these bands. He's like, you can see the guys that you want to be. Paul was talking about, like, Kiss wanted to be Zeppelin. Kiss wanted to be, I don't know, as big as Pink Floyd or whatever. Yeah. But they weren't looking at the competition. Like, where are we compared to the Eagles? Where are we compared to other 70s bands? Jefferson Starship, whatever. Right. He was looking at where are we to the top? And he says that's what their people are looking at. And now, he gets into details about new people starting on the internet. You can see all your competition. It's all there. Yeah. And it's obviously difficult, but and then it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and then in this chapter, he drops in his first of many food references.
Go ahead.
In food circles, people talk about layers of flavors and a flavor profile. Well, you don't get that from one ingredient. You get that from a balance of many. What?
Beautiful.
What? You know what I'm going to do from now on? I might have to read these excerpts in Paul's voice. I might have to do that.
Okay. But I like some part because he got into he's like, I know some other people that I thought were talented. Like he saw the Kiss, he was talking about the Beatles, the Who, Zeppelin. Why do some great talents make it? And he said, I saw other talents who were just as talented, but they never made it as big as those guys.
Yeah.
And he says he believes that those guys that make it is hard work.
Yeah, and
it isn't luck. It takes planning. It takes hard work.
Absolutely, and I think the impetus towards Paul's success was that relentless He didn't have a happy home life. He didn't have a happy childhood. He wanted something to prove to himself and to others. He needed an outlet. And
don't you believe that a lot of it is luck? Think of how many great athletes, running backs in football and college or this and that, just never got the chance. And if they got the chance, they would be. Think about, you don't think Tom Brady is lucky in some sense? Tom Brady could have played for Green Bay as the sixth round draft pick behind Brett Favre, never got in.
Yeah,
and then out of football.
No one's going to deny that luck plays a huge part in this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, or the band that, you know what, they just so happened to somebody saw them and brought it to somebody else. And where there's another great band that never got seen, and you know what, they just the guitarist got into a car accident, and then that's it. The band broke up.
But somebody like Paul, for him to give credit, quote unquote, to luck, would take away all he did as an individual. And Paul is not the kind of guy. We all know he has a very difficult time giving credit to anyone other than himself.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take away that they didn't earn how they got big.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's luck.
Exactly.
He's just saying, no, it was hard work.
Well, yeah, it was hard work, but you're not going to say it wasn't luck that you met Ace Frehley and Gene and Peter and you got hooked up with Bill Aucoin and Neil Bogart. That's not. That's luck.
Exactly. There's always things that come into play. I just found that to be kind of interesting. He said that.
I mean, what they did with the luck in the hard work, yeah. But you have to have the luck. You have to. So yeah.
So the fourth chapter of Fighting Optimism. I just put in there, I found interesting. I put out the point that he talked about my buddy Chris Jericho and said that Jericho's too small, was considered too small. I mean, I can go into details about that and how I know, like, Jericho asked, and then asked another wrestler, like, how tall are you? And he's like, you know what? This guy's tall enough. I can do it. And he put in all the hard work and he busted his ass.
Yeah,
you're right. He did. But I'm sure Jericho will also tell you that there are other guys that busted their ass just as hard as he did. Never had that one guy or one thing that it clicked, or that one promo that put him over and, didn't become a star that could have been a star.
Yeah.
He talks about that. And then I just put down, there's more preaching.
That's all it is. It continues. I mean, the parts of this book that I enjoyed when I could find them was something that was of concrete. Like, I thought that little story about Jericho, and unfortunately it was one paragraph long, that was a real life example of what you're talking about. And then after the Chris Jericho paragraph, he follows it up with, the rules only stand until they're broken, and that is the essence of dreaming big. Well, what? You just ruined a great story about Jericho with some Hallmark card shit. You know what I mean?
I just put more preaching.
Yeah, that's all it is. It continues on to the preaching. So, yeah.
So, the next, chapter 5, the only rule should be no rules.
Now we get into it. This was a good chapter. Because
I put...
We're at chapter 5, and now we're getting into some Kiss stuff.
This is when all of a sudden... This is Kissel. This is when all of a sudden my notes get a lot deeper.
Okay.
In this, he talks about Bill Aucoin and members in Kiss, how it felt right.
Yep.
Always did things their way. Then, did things for the fans. And then he goes into detail. Ace, doing booze. Peter's playing. Gene was in Hollywood. And it's mostly talking about like that era in the 80s, early 80s. And Paul was a serial spending his time serial dating.
Yep.
And he talks about the elder, Bob Ezrin, and one of the other parts, and I've heard Paul say this before, is, people ask, hey, is this good? And, not does somebody else think this is good. If he thinks it's good, that's all that matters to him. And he's always said that.
Yeah.
And he never really cared what other people thought because they may tell him, yeah, it's good. But if he doesn't feel it himself, it's not real.
Yeah, I enjoyed this chapter because, in the past when people talk about the Elder, whether it's at a KISS convention or something and people bring up the Elder and Paul always has like a snide remark about the Elder, discounting it and kind of trying to erase it from the history of the band. I liked how he kind of owned it and didn't try to blame anybody for the Elder. He says, I wasn't manipulated. I wasn't coerced. I wasn't strong-armed during the period we made Dynasty, Unmasked, or the Elder. I made those decisions based on my life at that point. I don't think they were the wrong decisions. They were the decisions necessary at the time. And then he keeps going. KISS was lost. We had forgotten who we were and why we were. We tried the best we could. We were sincere, but we were deluded and tainted by our success. I think that's an honest observation of where you were at the time. You're not trying to blame Bob Ezrin. You're not trying to blame Gene or anybody. You did it because you thought it was right at the time. In retrospect, it was maybe not a good call.
Yeah. And, he also said at that time, KISS had kind of accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish. They were already headlining Madison Square Garden. Yep. They were selling out. They were the biggest band in the world.
Yep.
The one thing they really didn't have, he said, was kind of validation.
Right.
So they switched
from
continuing doing what they normally do and said, let's go try to get some validation, some critic stuff. And, and he said Bob Ezrin basically couldn't guide the Elder like Destroyer. And, he said he felt their success, he called it their achievement, gave them license to do less.
Yeah.
Since we're already big and we've already succeeded, we don't need to work as hard because just being KISS is enough to keep this going.
Absolutely.
And so after they've already accomplished, he said they didn't know what really to do next. And then he gets into the details about the albums. He's like, no one really wanted to do a hard rock album. Ace can say he wanted to make a hard rock album, but he couldn't. Meaning like Ace is a drunk at that point, and he couldn't do a hard rock album even if he wanted to.
I don't know.
So he can say now, looking back, that he wanted to do it, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know how much I believe that. That's Ace playing on parts of the Elder. I mean, okay, so Ace couldn't rock out according to you, so you had to make fucking Just a Boy?
No, I think he's saying they all came up with it, and that Ace is using revision to basically look back and say, I want to do a hard rock album at the time.
That is where I'm calling out Paul. I don't agree with him on that. There is absolutely no way. Maybe Ace wasn't as vehement and vocal as he claims he was about his anti-Elder emotions, but I don't think.
I think Ace was a passenger probably at that point.
Probably.
All right, what are we doing? Where are we going?
Yeah, but I'm sure he wasn't on board with it, and he probably was like, what the fuck are we doing here, dude?
Yeah, but I'm sure he wasn't like, this is wrong. We need a hard rock album. Let's do it. I'm sure he wasn't saying shit either.
Maybe.
He did say that Odyssey had a false, bogus Broadway voice. Glad he realized it.
Yeah. He owns up to it. He owns up to it for sure.
And he talks about Creatures basically was the pendulum swinging all the way in the other direction.
And who's going to disagree with that? He's right. I mean, sometimes you have to sink before you can friggin' get your way back.
So here's what he's basically saying. Those early 80 albums, when they were failing, 79, Unmasked, Dynasty, Elder, whatever. Ace is drinking. Peter's playing had gotten terrible.
Yep.
Gene's in Hollywood trying to be a star, and Paul was trying to be a woman. It was womanizing, trying to date all these famous women.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
so there was no focus.
I mean, it's like if this was a behind the music episode, this would be the part of the episode where the band almost breaks up, and then they find their footing and they get their shit back together like they did with Creatures of the Night.
Or like an extreme close up when all of a sudden you hear that brrr,
oh yeah,
where the Black Diamond ending comes up and
But they play that in extreme close up when they're referring to this era.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean they were fat and happy and rich at that time. So
fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, Gene.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to chapter 6, and this is the last part of Business Success, part 1. Okay, so on this, he talked about that. Paul was always sensitive about how he was treated, and
you think?
Yeah. So he says he didn't even realize it, but there was somebody, in his, I think it was in the road crew, that they were teasing, and he said he was in on it.
Oh, yeah.
And that basically he didn't think anything of it because the guy didn't say anything. He wasn't bitching about it. He was kind of laughing along. And that a woman stood up to him and said, hey, cut the shit. And she said something to him. He says that has stayed with him forever. You don't treat people the way they allow themselves to be treated. You treat people the way they deserve to be treated. Like, meaning if somebody has no self-esteem and you let them to get picked on, doesn't mean that's okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Do they deserve that? That's a great thing.
Yeah, but that's nice revisionist history by Paul now that he's 68 years old writing this book.
No, but he's saying that he was part of the reason he didn't notice this. And this stranger that was like a seamstress or something, a seamstress in the band, basically stood up for the poor guy and said, hey, cut it out.
Paul didn't know
he's allowing it.
Paul didn't know he was being a dick. He needed somebody to tell him that.
No. I mean, you don't feel like sometimes you guys are you've never fucked around and teased somebody and didn't realize you were crossing the line and hurting the guy's feelings?
No, I know what you mean. I
mean, I don't think this is making him look good. I think this is making him look honest. Like, shit, I didn't realize it. I always thought because the guy didn't care that it was okay. They could have just been calling, just busting balls, as they say. And maybe didn't realize it, that they were pushing it.
Yeah.
Well, and you're like, well, I didn't realize it. He didn't say anything. Well, does that mean it's okay to do it? Like, maybe he doesn't want to stand up for himself. Maybe because he allows himself to do it. He doesn't make it right. So, and he brings up the fact that some lady in there stood up and said that to him, and he says it stayed with him. I love that part. And then he talks about, this part is great. Then he talks about how he reconnected with Lydia Chris.
Oh, boy. Yep.
And, he said, we had a past there, but he said he reconnected with her. He sees her at the cruise and stuff. And he said it was wonderful.
Yeah.
They, introduced each other's families. They talked about it. And then, unfortunately, he gets into it on Peter.
Why? You're 70 pages into a book about all this life-affirming positivity and changes and growth, et cetera, but you can't not shit on Peter. And I'm going to tell you right now, we read Face the Music and we followed Kiss. This is some of the most brutal shit he said about Peter. And I don't know why it's in here. But continue your thoughts.
No, I was just saying that Peter couldn't take criticism, he says. He talks about the reunion, how Peter was great in the beginning. And I've heard people say that Peter was the MVP in the beginning of the reunion.
Agreed. Yep.
And I guess Peter started to be getting a little pissy.
I believe that too. I don't deny that.
Bitching at, wait staff and room service and other, crew members and stuff. And so Paul jumps on and says Peter couldn't take criticism. And he couldn't deal with his musical shortcomings, he called it. So he put this in the book. If you're John Bonham and you're a prick, it's one thing. But if you can barely play in a jerk, what's the point?
Yeah, that was rough. Honestly, after all the good vibes I had gotten up to this point, I'm like, all I thought to myself was, there's Paul. He can't control himself. He can't not shit on these guys. He just can't not do it.
He goes on.
I know he goes on.
He says the same with Ace, but Peter lacked the wanting to do the work. Peter's barking at room service. Ace and Peter want to come back as equals. That's ridiculous. They were more concerned about how much Paul made than how much money they made. I 1,000% believe that.
I don't look. I'm not saying that I don't believe all that, okay? But look, we know Peter is whiny. If you're listening to us, we're recording on Wednesday. You're going to hear this on Saturday. By then, the poll will have ended. Our weekly poll was the whiny Peter thing. Okay, we talked about that. Was Peter whiny because they wouldn't, they held him back, or did they hold him back because it was whiny? Oh, we know nobody's denying that. Okay, we get that.
So what I wanted to say is, at this point, he's talking about, and I really believe it. I always talk about this. I have a law practice. I've had other people work for me. I've had people leave my law practice, open up their own business.
Yeah.
I am happy for them. Never begrudge anybody to make a living. Okay? Yep. So it happens. You've got to be okay with it. I truly believe that Peter and Ace were begrudging the fact that how much Gene and Paul were making. You were making like $50 on royalties from your solo albums before this happened. Now you're making millions of dollars, but you're bullshit because Paul and Gene are making tens of millions of dollars. Who cares? They kept the band going for years. They were the biggest musical contributors to the band. They deserve it. They didn't give up their rights to the band. They didn't sell their makeup.
But we're talking about the money during the reunion, correct? Who was being paid what during the reunion in 96?
At this point, they were more bitching like, well, you guys are making millions of dollars. We want more money.
Okay.
This is bullshit.
Okay, now wait. Now, for the first time in my life, okay, that reunion was a thing only because the 4 original band members came together. People wanted to see the original 4 members. So, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute. I think Peter and Ace may have a little bit of a point in saying, well, what the fuck, dude? This reunion is only happening because all 4 of us are here. What are you going to do, a reunion and have, not Ace and Peter?
No, we're not going to do a reunion. We're going to be Kiss and make a decent living and be a great band.
No. But I'm saying in 96 when the reunion was announced and it was the original 4. I'm saying Peter may have had a little bit of a bitch being like, what the fuck is this? You're going to cut me a check for whatever while you guys are just freaking.
Yeah. You're not in the band. Those guys in the band. You haven't been in the band in 10 years?
Right.
Oh, 16 years?
Right. But the Kiss reunion tour was the highest grossing tour of 96 because it was the original 4 members, not just because of Paul and Gene.
No, it's because the original 4 members, but the fact that they put on the makeup and the uniforms and everything and went back to the old school stuff.
Right.
Okay. So it doesn't mean that was going to happen without Ace. The band would have been out of fucking sync for the last 15 years. Who the hell kept the friggin' fans going all that time?
No.
The conventions and all that stuff. So first of all, you're not in the band.
No. You're misunderstanding me. I'm talking about how the pay was set up during the reunion.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the 15 years before that.
This as a corporation.
Yeah.
They're not a corporation.
I know.
Peter was making money, I think, up until Asylum or I forget when. He was making money because he was still in the band, getting a portion of the money.
Right.
He sold that off. They bought him out. Fuck off. So as the corporation, if you're not an owner in that corporation, you're a hired hand.
I get that.
Salary.
I get that.
They agreed to pay it. And what happened if the tour flopped? And what if the tour sucked and they flopped? They had to pay Peter his money.
Right.
You signed the deal. Fuck off.
I don't know. I just, look, it's hard because you're dealing with personalities like Paul and Gene against personalities like Ace and Peter. And the line of demarcation is very clear for a lot of fans. All
right, so here's the other part I want to get into.
Okay.
So he makes a point, and I like this. He says, Kiss didn't need to have equal amount of work. It was never about that. Just that everybody had to give 100% of what they were capable of. I want to show them what I'm capable of.
No, nobody's going to
that.
Right.
Doesn't that make sense? Then Paul has the right to say that. I don't give a fuck, Ace. You weren't writing all our songs. You weren't doing that. Peter, you weren't Rosa. But you came in. You were able to play our songs, and you could contribute a song to an album. Now you're out. Your drum playing sucks, and you're not bringing anything. Ace, you're not getting creative. You haven't brought in fucking shit. You're half the time you're in the bag during the fucking concerts.
No, that I agree. I agree
why
with.
Should they have to that? So he's saying, but if you could contribute 2 or 3 songs, come up with a couple great solos, and add a couple good riffs and a couple songs, Ace. Yeah, he didn't care that Gene and Paul did 80 to 75% of the work, or wrote 85 or 75% of the music.
No,
they didn't mind that.
I don't deny that. After the bloom was off the rose of the reunion, and everybody was all hunky dory and lovey, Ace and Peter turned into a couple shitbags. Nobody's going to deny that.
But he's also not applying that to just them two. He's also applying that to Gene.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's saying, well, fuck you, Gene. I know you can write some great songs and material and stuff like that. Why the fuck am I doing all this work and I'm splitting this with you?
Right. No,
fuck off.
You're right.
So, and then he gets into the typical Paul stuff. I'm refusing to let a bad marriage become cynical about the ideals of a good marriage. If you have to work hard in a relationship, then you're in the wrong relationship. So that's how I ended that chapter in that section.
Yeah.
So those last 2 chapters were the best ones, I feel.
Well, yeah, and I was hoping that the book would have been a little bit more of that, because I thought that was powerful, honest stuff that kind of piggybacked on what we got from Face the Music. You know what I mean? So
let's go to part 2, relationships and family. It's number 7.
Hold on, let me grab my pillow.
Live for others and live forever. These are some of my notes. Paul talks about death and death of parents. When we die, we become adult orphans. When our parents die, we become adult orphans. He doesn't miss his mom because she lives on in her meatloaf, and he just can't see her. What's the point of life? The point is life that we do in our lives, what we do in our lives, and what we leave behind.
Dude, I got to tell you right now, this chapter made me want to kill myself.
Well, let me just finish this last part. So I like this part. His parents, even his mom, who he shits on most of the time, that they told him, you can call us at any hour. And Paul says that he would call his mom.
Okay.
And she would come visit him. That he cried to his mom when he got divorced and she came over. Doesn't sound like that bad of a mom.
No, but I mean, I don't know. This is when we get back to real therapy talk stuff, and
But the funny thing here is, after what we just talked about in the previous chapter, I have here in quotes, the greatest thing I did in life was to stop being judgmental.
Yep.
What the fuck was the previous chapters?
See now, and those are some of the notes that I had. He's talking out of one side of his mouth for chapter 7, and the other side of his mouth for chapter 8.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, it gets
Anything
crazy.
you want to add to this chapter?
None.
Okay, chapter 8. Life becomes worthwhile while we make others feel worthwhile.
Okay.
No. The greatest days in our lives are the days we are born and the day we find out why. I don't understand that. Yeah. The day we found out why, we're alive because mommy and daddy had some little sperm love action going on. What do you mean, why?
Your dad put down a case of Natty Light. Yeah, that was about why. That was why.
But I don't understand that. Do you?
He's just
the day you find out why you were born.
But that's what I mean. This is when it comes into like that self-realization, that self-actualization talk.
Being a parent is mind-blowing.
I mean, he looks at his daughter and says, "I can't believe I'm your father." Like, why can't you? What are you, Darth Vader? Why can't you believe you're her father? Like what?
Because he had a vasectomy. Who knows?
I mean. And then he keeps going on again. We are the remnants of our parents. We continue on through our children. Look, I'm not denying that any of this stuff is not true. It's true, but
this part I found funny. He says that Kiss was pitched like tobacco products, a coffee table about porn stars.
I got a lot to say about this.
All right, and then I was like, And then he put, is this behavior something I could explain to my children? Is it something I could defend to future generations? Hey, buddy, did you just see our last episode, Kiss Confidential?
Really? You're talking about you? Honestly,
they're better than the pigs we had here last night.
Honestly, I was stunned when I read this. Like, in the case of porn, people have to decide for themselves whether or not it works for them. But for me, the book would have been legitimizing something I wasn't comfortable with. Never mind the Kiss Exposed video I made. And like Zeus just said, never mind the Kiss Confidential video we just made where we had strippers on talking about wave your panties in the air and calling people. I mean, come on, Paul.
Dude, when you had a chance to be on the Decline of Western Civilization 2, a documentary, and they called you up, are you meaning to tell us that that was a normal, real day, you in bed with 4 playmates?
Right.
No, you did that. You planned it, and you had them film that because that wasn't something that was naturally happened. They came over your house, and you were just there doing that.
See,
so that's what you were trying to show. So don't just say, you know what? I look back, I've made some stuff, and right now I realize I don't want that stuff, and the things that I did do, I feel a little bit ashamed of, and I wish now I would tell people to be careful what they do because later on they might not agree with these things.
Perfect. Does Paul think that people reading this book don't know anything about Kiss?
Yeah, it's just,
I don't know. That was just that I had that was one of the major highlights I had out of that section as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got stuff in here. Talks about a child abuse, has 2 choices: abuse others or do the opposite. Tolerance is acceptance. Acceptance is a choice, like lawful versus ethical.
Yeah. And then he gets into the Bible. Anyone can quote from the Bible. Anybody who uses the Bible as grounds for hatred or intolerance.
He sees homeless people, and he tells his kids, like, that guy went to school one day, and he could have wanted to be a president or a star. Give the tools to your kids to go out and not battle, but to enjoy life.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Paul.
Of course, all these are things you say to your 10-year-old kid, but
I know. I mean, right. Zeus and I, we're both parents. We're both raising kids.
No, little Johnny, go out and kick the fucking first kid you see in the nuts, and then call him a racist slur,
and then take his lunch money and make fun of his mom.
They goose his mom and punch his dad in the nuts.
Yeah, do that. Unless I put it in a book, then don't do that.
Drop a deuce in their station wagon.
Jesus. Go up to some kid's mom and say, "Put your hand on my pocket, grab onto my rocket."
Ooh, that'd be fantastic. Hey, Mrs. Smith, wave your panties in your hair, in the air, lick your lips and take your hair. I want to watch some asses shaking to the noise my boys are making.
Is that going to be acceptable for future generations, though?
I think that's sexy enough.
All right, let's move along.
Chapter 8. Chapter 9. Oh, if you're not asleep yet, buddy, the boundaries we inherit limit the distance we can travel. And you know what this chapter is going to be like if you're reading something preachy like that. Go ahead. You have anything?
It's just more brutality, and then he talks about. I found it interesting too because we both come from religious families. He talks about how he's Jewish, his wife is Catholic. They raise the kids as both, and you do this and that, and it goes on and on and on. And I'm like, dude, you understand? You're not the first friggin' person with a mixed religion marriage. We get it.
Yeah.
We just keep going on. That just needed to. And then again, and I'm going to follow this up near the end. He starts talking about revenge again, not the album.
Yeah. Then, did you see the part where he says, religion should reflect the times, not your life. Control your religion. And, talking about religion should be different. And then that he's talks about stuff and about don't let these issues become so that it's a root canal is needed before the decay sets in. So it's more or less like preventative dentistry.
Oh, what the fuck, Paul?
But Paul does say if someone hurts Paul, they're gone. Revenge is ugly, and I put except for the album. So if you like, in other words, Stewart, fuck off, you're gone. I agree with that. One part we didn't get into, he did say, and I heard him say this on Jericho's podcast with him. He was talking about relationships, and you find out you're fighting about the color of the paint of the wall. Oh yeah, but it's really more or less about control. That's not the reason you're fighting. I heard him say the exact same story. I forget what episode on Jericho's podcast it was, but it was there.
But anybody who's ever been in a relationship, from your high school girlfriend to your wife, we know that if you get into an argument about who left the shoes in the kitchen, you're not arguing about the shoes in the kitchen.
Yeah.
We know, we get
Never heard that before, but we get. And then he talked about, though, there's some Kiss stuff in there. They said, Peter would throw his drumsticks at him on stage. I've heard that before. If he got into his limelight, fuck out of the way, Paul.
Honestly, if that's true, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and then he admits that with Gene, when he was mad at Gene, Paul would be a dick back to him.
Yep.
So he admits that he was sometimes a dick instead of dealing with it directly,
Yeah.
So that's that chapter. We're up to chapter 10, strive to raise the bar, not lower it.
Yeah. He talks about this chapter is mainly about his first divorce, when he had his son Evan with his first wife and dealing with that struggle, trying to, the failed marriage, why it failed, how he protected Evan during the whole process. I thought this was an honest chapter, not a lot of, the psychotherapeutic discussion, more of an honest
things that I say. Don't hate your ex more than you love your kid. Communication. Don't badmouth the ex in front of your kids. I mean, these are stuff that we all know. Everybody, anytime you get a divorce, you're going to have to go and take a course, about child raising, and they always tell you that.
Right.
And then after this chapter, before chapter 11, photos come up.
Yeah, some cool photos, especially some of those real old, unseen ones of the early days of the band.
So some of my notes from these photos, I put, Paul was a cute little 12-year-old in that photo. I've never seen him. I thought he looked pretty cute. Look at him. He looks normal and looks happy. The lyric page was great.
Yeah,
Love Her All I Can and Black Diamond lyrics.
Yep, that was pretty cool.
And then obviously that picture is already leaked about his cab license with the, mutton chops.
Oh, that was great.
Right?
Yeah.
And I put it in my notes. Do you see the old pictures that have never been seen of them in their early makeup?
Yeah.
From the first album, Gene's got the skull, the bones, face
skull
on
and crossbones.
Yeah. Peter's makeup. I put here that Paul looks like he's like Puerto Rican.
Yeah, it looks.
That doesn't look like him. It looks like somebody just came off somebody else back then in the 70s.
Yeah, it looks weird. It doesn't look like
he's a white makeup on. It looks like someone just put some shit on his face, like dirt or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then this is what I don't understand. Studio 54, this photo that they're in Studio 54, he's like with Frank Zappa, Annie Lennox, and Andy Warhol. That's going to be mid-'80s. Studio 54 was still open then?
No, that's probably yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think so.
Annie Lennox, that's got to be at least 83, 84.
Probably, yeah. That's when the Eurythmics were kind of at their peak.
Studio 54 was open then?
I guess so. I don't know.
And then Paul, the next page, Paul and his pipes doing curls.
Yeah, we'll hear more. We'll hear more about that crap later.
Then Paul in his hawking his Pumas.
Yep.
Paul at the old house that he used to live in. Paul with his typical family beach, walking the beach. Paul in his on stage photo, a picture of the Jimmy Page holding his Face the Music book. I think I've already seen that one. I think that was already in his Face the Music book. I
think it was. Yeah, because that photo definitely looks familiar.
The old Kiss, and then he's got his Soul Station Band.
Yep.
Photos. And then I put the last page is Paul and his family. That's a good-looking family there.
I honestly, all jokes aside, when I saw this picture, I'm like, that's a pretty kick-ass family photo. It really is. I mean,
his good-looking family. His son, his oldest son, Evan, looked a little awkward when he was younger. Had the huge fro going.
Yeah, not anymore.
No, he looks like the guy from what's that show? He looks like the guy from Can't Buy Me Love. What's his name?
Oh, Patrick Dempsey?
Yeah, he looks like him there.
Yeah, and his wife is smoking.
Oh. Yeah, she's a good-looking woman.
Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey. What was the character's name in the movie?
Who? Ronnie? The guy who cut lawns there, Ronnie, whatever.
Ronnie Miller, or was
Ronald Miller? I think. Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good-looking photo, good-looking family.
Yeah.
And I did notice that one of the photos was by Keith LaRue, and the other one's by famous photographer Ross Halfin. Took that photo of Jimmy Page.
Yep.
So finally, the last chapter in part 2, 11. Understand the why and the struggle less with the why not.
Yeah. Just more. This is. I'll say right now, moving forward here, this whole second half of the book, it just gets ridiculous, in my opinion. It just becomes. I mean, he's kind of let out a lot of his major topics: his marriages, his children, his life with Kiss, and so now we just start getting into how wonderful life is and all the experiences and things I've done.
But he's still on that last chapter yet. So on this one, he does say, he talks about being faithful to his wife, and he turns women away, and they think, and here's they think he's either stupid or he's gay, and he says, "I'm neither." And we all know the rumors out there and the jokes and, he's definitely gay and this and this and that.
I think that's funny that he actually even said that at all. Yeah,
I don't think they think he's gay because he's faithful. I think they thought he was gay because he was by his, I wouldn't say his clothes, but by his effeminate stuff that he would do.
Yeah, and I like this quote too. Where he goes, somebody once said to me, quote, "I'm married, I'm not dead." Who the fuck said that? I mean, to make things work, we have to make conscious decisions. And enough. I get it, Paul.
Purpose to marriage is to combine. A relationship should bring out the best in people, not the worst.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. And then he talks about relationships. If someone's ruthless or unethical to other people, and then you get into business with them, why wouldn't they be that way to you?
Oh yeah, he talks like
cheat on people. Why would they cheat?
Yeah, he talks about like the accountant, or if he's screwed somebody before, he's going to do it again.
Yeah, but he did admit, and he usually doesn't kick himself, but he does say he was with women that cheated on others, and he's with them, and guess what? They did it to him.
Yeah,
and he's like, I should have known better.
Yeah, so I have a feeling he didn't care back then.
Yeah, no, I think he did care. I think I think it does bother him. So let's go to part 3: health and happiness.
And
part
that's
3,
and that's the end of the episode.
Kick the bucket list. Number 12.
This is when the cliches. This is when the cliches come on fast and furious. Let me tell you right now. Prepare yourself.
Life is a conveyor belt.
I mean, achieving something on your bucket list should open our eyes to something else we need to do. I don't think we should ever end up with everything checked off our list.
Keep adding to your bucket list. All right, that's number 12. 13, choose your battles means you win more often.
I don't know about that.
Now, I like this because there's some Kiss stuff in here.
Yes. Go ahead. You start.
Right? So he said the lowest moments of Creature Night Tour, they were basically playing in a lot of empty arenas.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to give them – don't go through the motions because you can't half-ass the show because what you're trying to do is get other people to join. You don't want to lose the loyal people that did come up to visit, and to watch you play. And he talks about taking off the makeup for Lick It Up.
Yeah, and
calls Lick It Up a good album. calls Creatures a great album.
Yeah, and I thought one of the most interesting things in this chapter right here, when he talks about the cover of Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. After all the books that we've read about Kiss, this is actually something that I found really interesting. He says, if you look at the Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits album, one person is in the center and bigger than the others, which was appropriate. And yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've heard him do that before. I've heard that before.
But that's pretty friggin' honest. Okay, maybe you have. I've never heard that before. I thought that was pretty honest. He's like, fuck yeah, I'm the reason this band is still around. Put me in the middle.
Remember where he kind of talked about the fact that in the videos he doesn't even have the guitar. He's in the front.
Yes.
Gene is in the background.
Yep.
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So that's what I think he's like, yeah, fuck that.
Okay. Yeah. No, I thought that was good.
Say the other interesting quote, what I liked hearing this is, people would say to him, well, with the makeup, Gene is the face of Kiss. And Paul's just the voice.
It's true.
But without the makeup, Paul gets more of his due. So he changed the face of the band when they took the makeup off.
Oh, easily. Paul, the transition was so much easier for Paul from makeup to non-makeup. He still behaved and acted and did everything the same. Gene lost his demon. We knew that.
Yeah. And I put that he seems bothered by Gene as the face of Kiss. Gene talked more off stage while Paul talked more on stage.
Yep.
He was talking about how they never thought of breaking up. Everybody else could leave, but he was staying. And then he goes on about Kiss the brand. And this is the part I'm saying about, that he's probably saying about Ace and Peter. Like, they were going through some rough times, and he was like, fuck you. I'm the one who's working. I'm the one who's keeping this band going. I will fight to this. You all could fucking leave. I'm keeping this. And for them to finally hit big and those guys come, I don't give a fuck that you did this for 14 years without me. I want the same as you. Like, fuck that. And
then I like the section. You probably liked it too when he started talking about the Eagles.
Yep. Yeah, this was interesting stuff.
Yeah, when he talks about, he said I sent out a tweet last year with a picture of the Eagles without Glenn Frey. He talks about the Eagles tour, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, I started getting bitter responses saying, this isn't the Eagles. These guys should hang it up. They're a cover band. And then somebody said, yep. And then somebody goes, oh, Paul, you're just saying that because of Kiss. You're a cover band too.
Yep.
Ooh.
So then Paul wrote this response.
Yep.
To the whiners, the hundreds of thousands who will love seeing the Eagles on this tour don't care about you and will have a great time while you whine about which and what band isn't meeting your criteria. In a world where someone else is happy, your unhappiness doesn't matter.
Now, how
in other
perfect.
Words, Stuart and the rest of you fucking whiners.
But think about that. Paul wrote this book before the tour started. Yep. So to think about those words are exactly perfect for all the shit that Kiss took when they announced the End of the Road and the early, the shows with the lip syncing, you're a cover band. Like, I thought that was kind of interesting and ironic that he wrote that about the Eagles when he could have easily written it about his own band. No,
I think I love that. And he was talking about, I love being in this band. I love the security of the band. I love to lean on others. And then he gets into the Eagles and he talks a little bit about that he likes the evolving members of the Eagles and that the band Yes doesn't have any original members, but other members have come into the band over time. You can say the same thing about the Eagles. There's only one original member in the Eagles, and that is
right.
That is Don Henley.
Right.
Okay? So, but Don Henley, now you have Deacon Fry, which is Glenn's son, Glenn Fry's son. But you've also had, during these times, all of a sudden Joe Walsh came in 4 albums into them. Then now everybody knows Joe Walsh has been in the Eagles for 25, 30 years. But he wasn't an original member. So I think what he's trying to lay the foundation for is to say that, look, what if Gene leaves next time? And then it's me, Eric, and Tommy. And then I leave. And then it's Tommy. Isn't that kind of still Kiss? Because now you still have Tommy and Eric Singer still playing.
Right.
See, I can see that.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah.
So I find that stuff to be fascinating. And he talks about that he will end it when he wants to end. So,
and I think Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and I find that interesting, based on where we are in the tour right now while we're reading this book.
Yeah. 14, when you find the true meaning in what you've accomplished, you'll fall in love all over again. Huh?
Yeah, I got a couple things here when he talked about, he talks about, actually, there's a little bit of a typo here. He talks about when he went backstage with Tupac at the American Music Awards.
Yes.
Oops, it was the Grammys.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
it made me second guess it. Like, what's he talking about?
No, it was the Grammys. Unless now I'm second guessing myself.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
No, he just talks about putting everything back on and how it felt great in Tiger Stadium and how he just talks about how much he just loves the band. So that was the cool stuff. Oh
no, this chapter is very interesting.
Yeah, there is.
So he brings up Bill Aucoin and Sean Delaney. He said that both of those guys made each member feel like he was their favorite. That if not for them, and he says that if not for Bill Aucoin and Sean Delaney, if not for them, I don't think Kiss would have survived.
Yep. Agreed.
And and that is a true talent of someone that makes you feel like when you're with them, they think you're the best. And I think that's what he's saying to Aucoin and Sean Delaney. And he goes on to detail what Sean did for them, and I've talked about that in previous episodes. And he talks about it's still there's nothing compared to being in Kiss. And still. The bands that say they want to play clubs, show me the band that wants to play clubs, and I'll show you a band that can't play an arena.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Why don't we get to the big part of this chapter?
Oh, when he said he choked up on stage when they did the reunion?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Remember earlier we were talking about how he was piling on to Peter?
Yeah.
Brutal, I thought, in this.
Peter doesn't have a life, in quotes. Peter's sense of anger and resentment and feeling like a victim. That's a little bit of projection, if you ask me.
Well, you left out a couple other key lines here.
Hold on, I'm not done yet.
No,
Peter's always been negative. Consumed some kind of reality that his wife tells him.
That's fucked.
I've heard that, though, and I've heard that from other people on other podcasts by different people around Kiss.
Okay.
That his wife
now
is that person that makes everything miserable.
I'm not saying that may not necessarily be true. But again, why do you have to put that in your book? Why do you have to put that in your book? Like that's just frustrating to me.
Yeah, because there's goodwill. Peter hasn't said anything in the media. Does he really need to hear that he doesn't have a life? I don't have a problem with him saying, look, Peter's wife causes a lot of friction with us. And I heard and read a lot about that. And I saw and read a lot from other people around Kiss that had no reason to talk, to pick sides, that said that she was a troublemaker. One trying to stir Peter up about, how much money you making? What are they doing? Where are they staying? How come they get room service like this? How come and it would get Peter in the whining and the bitching. And so they're like, we don't fucking need this. But that's prevalent with a lot of rock bands. Like, somebody's wife gets involved. It's in every friggin' drama rock story movie. Someone's wife gets in there, her girlfriend gets in there, and she stirs shit up.
Yeah, and then he continues, I think Peter's life is probably very one-dimensional, uninteresting, and unstimulating, which is a result of seeing the world negatively and seeing everyone from the band members to the hotel service people as disrespectful. That's not a world anyone should live in, and I don't want to be a part of it. Well, there goes your friggin' hopes of a reunion on the end of the road tour. And then he comes in with the cliches. In the past few years, I began to realize life is like dodgeball. In our own way, we're all trying to duck the ball. All right, whatever.
Yeah, and then he talks about, he actually goes in about Kurt Cobain dying young.
I like that. That was interesting.
How do you know Kurt Cobain may not do 3 albums from now, do an album that fails? And he talks about James Dean versus Marlon Brando. Yep. Brando, if Brando died old,
Yep.
And people laughed at him, fat and old.
Yep.
Brando was the bigger star and the bigger sexism than James Dean, but James Dean is still seen as cool.
Right. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Kurt Cobain is still seen as cool, but who knows what they would have been had they gone up. And he talks about people being unhappy, makes them feel better, and the Florence Nightingale syndrome.
Yeah.
Happy people attract others around them. So that's why they're so happy.
Yep.
And maybe we won't be so corny.
Exactly.
Get gold tooth out of your mouth and go get yourself some pussy. All right. Chapter 15, Vanity Isn't Narcissism. He talks about cholesterol. This is the part that I put that I thought it was obscure. And that he wanted to get a trainer. And he says, pick a trainer that you want to look like. Don't pick a muscle-bound guy that you look at and you're like, because that's what he's going to try to train you to be like. Yeah. And he talks about that. He went to see that guy, not Seinfeld, Steinfeld, Body by Jake. Remember those?
Jake. Yeah, Body by Jake.
Remember? He's like, that guy was like, oh, I'm going to make you sore. And he's like, well, that guy's not for me. And you know what comes to mind when I think of that?
What?
You dumb fuck.
What's that from?
He was the cab driver in Coming to America.
Yeah.
And then where Akeem stops in front of his cab, he puts his cab. What is a dumb fuck?
But then, and this is honestly from here on to the end of the book. This is when I almost started like skipping paragraphs. He starts talking about how to lift weights. It's how we lift and how we put the weight down. It's the control of the motion. That's how we get in shape. We get more out of the muscles when we use them from the beginning of the movement to the end. Lifting weight is half of it. Bringing down is the other half. Are you fucking kidding me, Paul?
I'm benching 250 pounds. You're benching 250 pieces?
I mean, come on, man.
Pieces? What the fuck? Pounds, baby, pounds. And
then
that's why I ask you how many years experience I have.
Yeah, then he starts talking about,
Oh, you ruined it.
No, I'm trying to get through this godforsaken book.
Ruined it. You're supposed to come back to me with what?
You're benching 350 pieces?
Pounds, baby, pounds. You talking about? And that's why I asked. And I told you 10 liver lips. Talk to me.
10 liver lips?
Thank you. We got that out. Now we can go on.
Oh, wait. Chapter 16. He starts off by telling you how much he likes ice cream.
Wait, you got to give the title. Pride in what we do is pride in who we are.
This is when he starts talking about what he likes to eat and ice cream. And food can be a sensory treat. You can experience a meal. You can enjoy a meal. Oh.
Yeah, and he talks about how he started cooking for his son and how he was a terrible dresser, and then he learned how to pick out an outfit for himself. And
you know why? Because somebody went up to him and said, look at those shoes and that dress.
Awful. But I did like how he talked about like how he originally started writing songs about a song, like he wanted to write a song that sounded like something he liked. So Hard Luck Woman was like a Rod Stewart. Harder Than Hell was like All Right Now by Free. Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting.
But if you thought that was interesting, he then starts talking about how to make a meatball. and what's more interesting than hearing Paul Stanley tell you how to make a fucking meatball?
Oh. And that his wife loves to bake. And they have kitchen adventures together. But he did mention that him and Gene, I didn't know this, in 73 were making pants for each other. That he was stitching them. I don't know. And that his kids now would make apple pie from scratch.
Oh, that was a riveting chapter right there.
And Paul tweets celebrity chefs about cooking. And then he gets into, you got to use the chicken stock and make sure you grease the pan. And
honestly, this is when I almost took the book and said, I can't. I don't know what happened.
One more left.
What happened to Star Child? What happened to Star Child?
If we keep 17, if we keep moving forward, we never finish the journey.
Good one, Paul.
Express yourself. Music, cooking, art.
Yeah, he just starts talking about art and his artistic ability. I've never been good at working to someone else's schedule. However, nobody works harder, is more motivated, or can deliver more dependably than I can.
And I think I remember, yeah, that's funny. And I think I remember him saying this, that he was talking about like the Kiss stuff stick out to me. So he was talking about do another album. I'm not inspired. He was shown the bills. I got expired.
Yeah.
He's done that. I've heard him say that on once again, I'm name drop on Jericho's podcast. I heard him talk about that, about the bills. Now I'm inspired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think he talks about riffs and chords. You know, and that's why there's not a lot of unreleased songs that he does. If it's not worth going on, he stops. He talks about painting styles and vibrant colors.
Yeah, but then he talks about, you know, making campanelli pasta with sausage and broccoli and toasted panko crumbs. But he had overlooked one of the basic rules of cooking vegetables.
Okay.
What the fuck, Paul? What?
Let me get back to the Kiss stuff. He does say, he talks about Carnival Souls. Yep. And we've heard him say this before. Like, you know, it just being miserable felt fake. What do we have to bitch about, right? And I want to say, dude, that's all you've ever done, though, Paul. You're always complaining. Did you read your first book? You admit you were very miserable. You had a miserable childhood. So why does it be like Kiss is a celebration? He always likes to say, right? But obviously you've had some misery. Obviously you were going through a painful childhood. And, you know, you've also had painful relationships and breakups. Why? You can't talk about that?
Yeah, I thought his analysis of Carnival of Souls was a little bit disingenuous as opposed to his analysis of, like, The Elder, which I thought was pretty honest. I think he's like, you know, I thought it was fake and disingenuous because of my fundamental optimism, like you just said. Like, what'd you write it for? Like, because you wanted to be like,
you can't have all the feelings,
right? Exactly. You wrote that. That album came from a place of honesty. Either that, or you were really frauds trying to be Alice in Chains.
Well, you know, if he goes to say, look, we've written songs about despair and lack of hope and things like that. Okay, great. I think maybe if you want to say, look, we've done songs like that before, you know, but we've never done a whole theme where the whole album is too dark. I felt that the album was too dark. And that's not what Kiss is about. I can get that, but don't be like you can't write about that because Kiss is always so happy and optimistic. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
It's okay to write something dark. What is fucking Unholy? A positive song?
I know.
Anyways, and the only other thing I noticed there that he talked about I Will Be There was written for Evan, where he relates to that song.
Yeah.
You know, as a thing to his kid. And then he gets into Soul Station and, you know, he's different group of band members and Soul Station is this and that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the final part is I loved about this was he was saying, he told Rod Stewart, yeah, I'm doing this band. And he said he created Soul Station because he had to do a classic rock band for a fundraiser for his kids.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just fucking give money to your kids' band? I'm sure it's fucking all Hollywood and you know, rich part of L.A. Why don't people just give money? Oh, I had to raise money for it with a classic rock band. Dude, here's some money. But anyways, he asked Rod Stewart, and Rod Stewart asked him, great, you're going to do like a fucking R&B. Who's going to sing? Paul said, me. And he says, you can handle those songs? And he goes, then I played him some live recordings. And Rod said, wow.
Oh, whatever.
Well, wait a minute. Rod said, wow. Picture that going. And if he didn't like it, wow.
Yeah. Exactly. How do we know the context of the wow?
Yeah, so it could have been like, I don't know if Rod was saying, I don't think it means what you think it means. What's that part?
Yeah.
Fucking
and again, when
I keep saying that, I don't think it means what you think it means.
And I know it's 40 years later, but every time we've talked about this before, every time I hear him talking about Soul Station and the Motown R&B sound, I'm like, then why did you destroy Peter's album? Yeah. Why do you continue to shit on that album?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, just pisses me off every time I hear Paul brag and celebrate about Soul Station.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And he finally ends with, you know, better live with failure than regret. People notice that he smiles a lot more now that he's in Kiss. Good. I'm glad he's happier because fuck, he was not too happy before.
Of course he's smiling. He's got money out the ass. What the hell's he got to be sad?
Happily married. He's got a good family. Good for him.
Right.
Kiss initially celebrates the right to be you, and us now is a celebration of life. What's next? He has no idea. He believes in God, and he sees people a lot lately who have dying wishes and dying to meet him, and he tells them what to do. To believe in what they believe, and it's up to them to believe that. And that he says in the end of this book that he will be smiling right up until the end. The end.
Yeah, I thought it was more cliche stuff, but I thought it was a good way to kind of wrap up.
But it didn't really wrap up because then he has the outro.
Well, yeah, he does. He does have that, which was good. He says,
Kiss, always the underdog, over 2,500 shows.
Yep.
He just, therapy for 40 years. Kiss is multi-generational and proud of it.
We don't preach. We don't preach. We inspire.
Yeah. The Kiss is the people's band. I'm like, does The Rock know you stole that saying? And in his Kiss rider, like any Kiss stuff I find interesting. They used to have champagne by the case. Now Dr. Pepper. Who drank the champagne? Ace and Peter?
Yeah.
Right? And only have Advil now.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper.
Talks about inspiring doctors and cancer survivors. That Kiss got them through that. And what do I put right next to it?
Doctors,
close-up.
Lawyers, policemen. You got me through it.
That's right. He has it all, says right now. His great job and a family. And at the top of the mountain is room for everybody.
That's right.
And we get to the addendum.
Now,
we're not over yet, folks. Almost there.
I will say, I'm going to be honest with you here. When I read the addendum, it was the first time in this entire book where I actually got, as a Kiss fan, I actually got a little emotional because I thought if this book was written the way this addendum was written, I thought the book would have been amazing. The way that he poured out his heart about his love for Gene, I thought was so well written and so honest.
Yeah,
and I honestly don't know if I've ever heard him speak of Gene like this ever before. It's usually tongue in cheek, kind of a little bit of humor, but here, go ahead. I know you have some notes, so go ahead.
So Gene, he talks about Gene flew to see him when he had his ear operated on, despite Gene's fear of flying. When he had his divorce, he let Paul live with him. He threw him a surprise birthday party when he turned 61. I don't get that. Why would he throw him a surprise birthday? 61? Like, why would you talk like that's okay?
I know.
Gene was the first to come into the delivery room when Evan was born. I think that's huge for him.
Absolutely.
And then, in 94, when that earthquake he talked about in the Dan Rather interview happened, and him and Gene were not talking to each other at that time, really. And he said he called Gene first to see if he was all right. And he can count his real friends on his 10 fingers, and obviously Gene is one of them. Yeah, Tom, I was hoping this book would be stuff like that. Like, all right, we get that you like cooking and working out,
and painting, and right.
It's your Kiss fans talk about, I know you talk about your kids and your wife and stuff. Talk more about your relationship with Gene. Talk more about your relationship with past members. This was one of my favorite parts of the book, if not the favorite.
It actually took me by surprise because I thought the book, the regular part of the book ended on such just a corny thing that to see this, it was like it was just like a punch in the arm, like a shot in the arm to hear him really open up. It was good to see,
Yeah, and then it ends with acknowledgments.
Yep.
He obviously his wife Erin, his kids, the co-author, the agents and publicists and all that stuff, and then the fans, the people that have been through him.
Yep.
And and it's about the author. Sounds like a Wikipedia page of Paul, and it does talk about. Remember, Paul got some criticism on the Dan Rather interview where he said like he came up with the logo. He didn't. He said it in the past. He refined it a little.
He refined it.
He
Exactly.
let that go in this part. He's like, he came up with the album covers. He did?
No, he did. What album covers?
Yeah. So I was just like, what?
What does he come?
But anyways,
what did he come up with? Crazy Nights where you can see his thong on the back cover.
And then the collaborator, Tim Moore. I found this interesting. I wrote it down. Author of Burn Down the Hoss, a book about East German punk rock history. What the fuck did that have to do? And Paul found him. But then I saw that he had collaborated with Joe Walsh and Duff McKagan on their book. So that's probably how he found him. But I was like, what the fucking obscure thing is that?
Which, by the way, speaking of Duff McKagan, real quick, if you have not read his book, holy shit, highly recommend that if you like rock bios. One of the best.
Well, this guy helped him on that.
Yep.
If this guy did a great job there, I wish you would have helped him on this. Like,
yeah.
Now we're done. It's longer than I anticipated.
That happens. That's okay.
But now, overall thoughts.
I was really disappointed with it, to be honest. I thought it was just a collection of cliches and you know, kind of, you know, I hate to use the term psychobabble, but you could see it was a lot of stuff, you know, self-reflection that I just thought was real kind of cheesy and corny. I thought one thing I noticed, I thought some of the sections were very repetitive. I thought there would be a chapter where he would just keep kind of belaboring the point, you know, page after page. I'm like, okay, I get it. One of my notes I took down is that he reminds me of Lloyd Braun from Seinfeld with the Serenity Now. Like, I feel like Paul must be so annoying to sit down and talk with, because I feel like you're not going to get anything out of him, any true emotion out of him.
Everything is so guarded,
scripted and guarded and thought out. It doesn't seem like there's any real pure emotion there.
He's more interested in you hearing something that makes you think he's intelligent than hearing something that he thinks is honest.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that was disappointing. And that's why I thought some sections, the opening section about his dad, that addendum at the end with Gene, those sections were sections where he opened up. But when you start getting into the painting and the cooking and just different things, you know. And
you remember the part in the book where he talked about Kiss has already achieved everything, so they didn't really have to try hard anymore.
Yeah.
He's already a millionaire times over.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful life. He loves being on stage. He gets to do anything he wants. So if he wants to write a book, flatter his own ego, think that this stuff is interesting, whether people care or not, knows that Kiss fans are going to buy this anyways, he can do it.
Of course, because we bought the book and now we've been talking about it all night. So
right? He can do it, and we're the people that do it.
I knew it wasn't going to be Face the Music Part 2, but I did not think it was going to be this. I really
liked Face the Music.
Oh, it's the best Kiss book.
This is our first book review.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, do you have a grade for this?
I'm going to be honest with you. I honestly was bored a lot. I was disappointed a lot. Look, coming from me personally, okay, you know, we kind of make a good team doing this, because not only are we huge Kiss fans, but sometimes we come things from different but similar angles. Mm-hmm. You have the legal background. I have a psych background, but we still both can kind of talk about things the same. Mm-hmm. I don't like these kinds of books. I think that when I see a self-help book in the Barnes & Noble, I think they're a money grab. I think these books are certain people, you're going to get out of it what you want. I think that they're hollow, and I don't really think they offer anything. I think Paul knew that as long as he writes a book with Paul Stanley on the cover and a picture of his Kiss boots or whatever, it's going to sell, and it did. I'm just disappointed in it, and you know, I guess I can't really be any more honest than that. It's not something that I'm ever going to read again. I would read Face the Music a bunch more times. I would read all the other books a bunch more times. I'll never read this one again.
No. I would probably give this a C- or a C.
I think you're being kind.
And here's why. I think it reads easy.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I like that it's short.
Yeah.
I like that you can zip through this.
Yeah.
I found some stuff interesting. I actually like some of the, if this works for somebody, I don't mind hearing it.
Right. Yeah, I don't mind that either.
It's just, a lot of this stuff, not to sound mean to them, like just eye-rolling stuff, like,
totally.
Yeah. Oh, I should reflect on things that went well for me. I should block out negativity. Oh, okay. Sound like, oh, fantastic, a towel. Right?
Yeah,
like,
it was very
like really? Oh, okay.
Near the end of the book, it got very, very self-indulgent when he started talking about how to cook the pasta and how to prepare the pan. And it's like, Paul, it's one thing that you love to cook and you're good at it, and that's great. That's an outlet for you. But you're going to start getting into details about how to prepare the penne pasta with the meatball. I mean, come on, dude. Enough. And
it's just almost like somebody that wants to show somebody that they're intelligent.
Bingo.
More than, hearing something and sharing something for them to learn.
I actually had a similar note written down. Look at me. Look all the shit I can do. And I'm Paul Stanley, and I'm a millionaire, and I'm the part of the biggest rock band in the world. But you read my book because you can do all this too. No,
yeah, and
no.
It's just I wanted this to be more. It's not.
Agreed.
Guys, you're probably better off getting this from the library or borrowing the book from somebody else. You want to zip through it. You'll finish it in a weekend, and you'll be thankful you probably didn't purchase it. But I've said this before, Tommy. It's Kiss.
Yeah.
It's just like Star Wars. Star Wars can do a movie about R2-D2 taking a dump. I'd still go out and see it.
Me too.
Paul and Gene can do a fucking album of them burping.
Yep.
The whole fucking album. I'll still run out and buy it.
I know. I'm with you.
This book is no different. It goes, what will stand out is if someone says to you, you're going away for a month. You can bring 5 Kiss books with you. Are you bringing this one?
No.
Or are you not even thinking about this book?
Not even close.
Do you see my point? That's how I want to explain it to Kiss fans.
Of course.
But are you going to still get it and read it and find and pick something up that you read that you didn't know, or something that you relate to and makes you happy that you're glad you bought it? Yes.
Yeah.
So that's our third. I gave it a C-, Tom. You didn't tell me. What did you think?
I'd probably, to be kind, because it's Paul and he did talk about some Kiss things, I'd give it. I'd be kind and give it a C-, but that's kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Backstage Pass. For those of you, I hope if you're listening to this while you're driving, you didn't fucking fall asleep and get into the wrong lane. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you read it. Tell us what your thoughts are on the book. Right?
Tell us if we're wrong. Are we being insensitive jerks because we didn't sign on with the book? So, but before we get into plugs, questions, Tommy. Yeah, let's see. We got a bunch, so we try to keep it to 2 per week. If we don't get to your question tonight, you will hear from us. I'm sorry, you will hear, your question. So, first one, this comes from a really awesome Twitter page. It's called Save Rock and Metal. Cool page. They cover all kinds of things about rock music. If you have not following them, they are at Save Rock and Metal on Twitter. So they picked their question. I picked this one because it was kind of topical. Why do you think Peter has been so quiet lately?
I thought he did a semi-retirement show.
Okay.
I think honestly, I don't think he can play. I don't think he can play at all.
I agree.
I think. So what's he going to do? Go out there and try to do a new band or tour? He's like 70-something. He's the oldest one of them, so he can't perform. I think he's going to start getting back in the limelight with. Remember this? He's got something coming up during the Kiss cruise.
Yeah, we talked about that in October.
Yeah, I think he's just going to keep his name out there, make a little money on some of this Kiss convention, Kiss stuff. I just think he can't perform, so he's been quiet and doesn't need it. And
yeah, I could see that. I'm just interested as to why no one's even sought him out for an interview. Like, hey, Peter, what do you think of the End of the Road tour? Have you been to any shows? Do you think Unless he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm all done. That part of my life is over. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know.
Maybe he's happy and he's content, or maybe he's still holding up hope that there's a segment for him in the End of the Road tour.
Or maybe Paul and Gene gave him $100,000 to keep his mouth shut until they surprise everybody with him on stage.
Yeah, or paying him on a retainer. Say, don't go on fucking Stewart's radio show and bash us.
Right.
So that could be it. All right.
One more. This is from our buddy Dave Tripney. He's asked a couple things in the past. I like this one. If you were Bill Aucoin, what would you have done differently while you were their manager? This one was easy as soon as I heard it.
Blown the band. What would I have done differently?
Yep. Now, he was their manager during their prime years.
Yeah, obviously. I'm just thinking out loud. What would I have done differently?
But he was also the manager during those lean years in the late 70s, early 80s.
I think I would have made it so that the band members could not get extra players on the albums. I think I would have been like, no, there is no fucking session guy here. Peter's going to play on this. No. Okay. Ace is away. He's drunk. We'll wait till he's back up. You're not going to bring in Bob to fucking do this. I think that led them to start getting into I don't need to be here. I don't need to work. They'll fucking get somebody else. Oh, we don't need him. I think that's what took away from the magic. If they kept all the band members saying, no, get you guys in the band together in the studio. You're all fucking doing this. And I think they maybe never broke up.
Yeah, I kind of close coming from the same angle that you just did. I would have fought tooth and nail like Dokken to do not do the solo albums. I know that you guys think that they're going to be good for you. Don't do them. Don't do them. Just stay away. Do something different. Do not do the solo albums. Because I think that was the beginning of the end.
Okay, but we wouldn't have had Hold Me, Touch Me.
Exactly. Ugh. Yeah, I love the solo albums. Everybody loves the solo albums, but I think what it led to, and I know that they try to defend the solo albums by saying, "Oh, it kind of like let us burst that bubble and let us go our separate ways." But yeah, no, no.
Yeah, no, I got it. All right, so guys, we've had a very lengthy episode, and we talked about a lot of stuff. The best part of these episodes are the stuff that we get from you guys, and that is, the text, the tweets, the comments on Facebook, the emails that we get from you guys talking about what you heard or what you didn't like or what you did like or what you want to discuss more or questions. So the only way to do that is to actually find us and listen to us. First way, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, Podomatic, Podchaser. There's plenty of places. Anywhere you can get your podcasts, you can find us. Obviously, we ask that you interact with us. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Email us. We got a lot of emails this week, Tom. Email us out at shoutitoutloudcast@gmail.com. Shoutitoutloudcast@gmail.com. Ask us questions. And then go on those go on and give us one of those 5-star child reviews so people can find our podcast. We love it. And, and tell us who you are and why you love us. Hopefully you love us and you don't hate us. It makes our day, and it's awesome to see, and it gets us fired up to keep coming back and giving you guys better and better episodes.
Yeah. The interaction is really picking up. We love it. I mean, everybody loves talking Kiss, talking music in general. We're active on social media. We try to do polls, or, we may retweet some stories with our opinion and try to get you guys involved and jump in. It's a good. Twitter is the place to be to really let your opinions be heard. It's a really good way to interact. So keep it going because we love it. So, long episode tonight, but we had a lot to say about a very important book that people are talking about. So we hope you guys enjoy the analysis and hope you don't, we want to hear your thoughts about this when you do read the book.
All right, guys. Tommy, last words.
I wanted to try to find something topical. So I've been counted out. I've had fear and doubt. I've been starry-eyed, never satisfied. Because late at night, I need you just the same.
Love that. Love that song. And for me, because it's Paul's book, this reminds me of more of Paul now and where he's at. I've got streaks in my hair. People point at me and stare. If they ask me, I say, yeah, I'm a freak.
Good one. Very topical.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. Good night. I'm half asleep. This is one long fucking episode. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the extended episode.
Peace out, Girl Scout.